Hello world, and happy new year to us all. We finally reached over that COVID-filled hump known as 2020, and now it is 2021. I hope everybody so far is having a great new year. Hope that everybody's still staying within, safety and health protocols, within distance, and really kind of abiding by everything with the pandemic going on. The sooner we can do it, the better. Hopefully by April, May of this year, everything could start to look like a smidgen of normal that we're used to. So pray to the gods above that all that could happen. But before we do that, we got to kick off the year with another one of my videos, another one of my Eugene reviews. And today, as we get back to our regularly scheduled program, we are going to go back to the MCU. And being that we're back in the MCU, we're gonna go over the 15th, yes, 15th Marvel Cinematic Universe entry and the 16th film that we've covered thus far, and it is the sequel to the 2014 surprising smash hit, Guardians of the Galaxy, none other than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Yes, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, as far as my history with watching that film, I think I saw it once. I did see it in AMC theaters. Yes, at a time when there were still theaters and they were jam-packed with a bunch of rabid, heart-pounding, passionate fans making noise for every single thing that they do in Marvel film. But yes, back during those times, I did watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with a bunch of friends, and I do recall seeing it once. But as far as my history, that's the only time I've seen it. So nothing really exponentially detailed when it comes to my history of watching this film. So let's go ahead and go into the three acts as we go into this 16th MCU film, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Act 1, Development. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Take 1. So once again, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the sequel to the 2014 film, which was the surprise hit of that year, being that Guardians of the Galaxy was a property of Marvel that no one really knew about. But when the film came out and came out to such immediate, critical, universal acclaim, let's just say the stock rose by a lot for that property. And now you can't help but say to yourself that there has to be a sequel for this film. So due to the strong performance, both from a financial standpoint, from a critic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, of course, there was already a green light for the development for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And of course, all that success hinged from the direction from James Gunn, as well as the great critical and just bonding performance from the 5 members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So of course, they all had to come back. James Gunn is back to direct and write this film. You've got Chris Pratt back as Star-Lord, Zoe Saldana back as Gamora, Dave Bautista back as Drax the Destroyer, Rocket Raccoon is back, voiced by Bradley Cooper, and of course Groot in his baby Groot form, voiced by Vin Diesel. But along with them comes some new additions. We've got new characters to kind of introduce, as well as some other characters that are going to be developed as well with more of a significant role. Let's start with the recurring ones, like Nebula, played by Karen Gillan, who now has an exponentially more significant role in Part 2. You've got Michael Rooker, who plays Yondu, the Ravager, the blue-faced Ravager, back in this film too, with an also more significant role. And then we've got the new additions into this film, such as the newest member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, played by Pom Klementieff. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Pom plays Mantis. You've got the golden goddess of the sovereigns, Aisha, played by Elizabeth Debicki. You've got Sly himself, Sylvester Stallone, playing a Ravager. I think one of the more notable, higher-ranked Ravagers that really kind of is one of the leaders and also turns out to be one of the original members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then finally, of course, the main big baddie himself, Ego, the Living Planet, played by Kurt Russell. So a lot of new additions, and even to a lot more cool little cameos that were included into this film. Some cameos include guys like Ving Rhames, who played an original Guardians of the Galaxy member, Michelle Yeoh playing an original Guardians of the Galaxy member, Miley Cyrus playing an original Guardians of the Galaxy member. Hell, even David Hasselhoff appears in this film. So a lot of cool new additions, a lot of even more interesting cameos, and of course the cast recurring to reprise their respective roles. An interesting thing to note, Matthew McConaughey was in consideration for this film as a villain. It wasn't really revealed if he'd be Ego or if he would be another villain, but Matthew McConaughey was indeed considered, but eventually turned it down for he was busy because he was doing The Dark Tower, and kind of know how that went. And then another notable thing too was James Gunn getting a little bit of flack for including the post-credit scene that showed a little bit of a tease for Adam Warlock. Because many fans think, oh, if it's in the post-credit scene, that means they're gonna pop up in Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War. Oh my goodness. But I think James Gunn got a little bit of flack for it, and he had to kind of explain to fans that we're including Adam Warlock, but don't expect him anytime soon. And just as good as the 2014 film itself was the soundtrack that was a part of it, that just became this glistening nostalgic fever when it was released with the movie. Now that follows with another soundtrack, the Volume 2 soundtrack, and now the expectations are it has to be bigger, better, more flamboyant, more nostalgic, and it didn't really disappoint. A couple artists that were featured were Fleetwood Mac. As we all know, Fleetwood Mac, very viral at least nowadays with the famed TikTok video, but Fleetwood Mac had a song in the soundtrack. Cat Stevens is included in the soundtrack, Sam Cooke, the Electric Light Orchestra, as well as Cheap Trick. So a lot more of a diverse playlist when it comes to this new soundtrack that has a good number of hits that we recognize, but also a couple of under the radar gems that I think got a second chance to really spread its wings because this is a Guardians of the Galaxy film. So the sequel developed because of the strong critical and financial response from the first film in 2014. Everybody that was originally a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy team reprising their roles, as well as the director back at the helm of directing. Recurring actors such as Karen Gillan and Michael Rooker having more significant roles in this film, as well as the new additions like Sly, Kurt Russell, Palm Clementif. Even the cameos with Michelle Yeoh, Ving Rhames, David Hasselhoff, Miley Cyrus, Matthew McConaughey being initially projected for a villain role in this film, but ultimately he turned it down. Marvel giving a little bit of slack to James Gunn for including that Adam Warlock post-credit scene, which he then had to clarify and say nothing anytime soon in regards to Adam Warlock. And then finally, a more diverse soundtrack for the Volume 2 awesome mix for this film. So many aspects of building and building and building to make the sequel just as big, if not bigger than the first film. Let's see if it actually executed well in Act 2. Act 2, Execution. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Take 1. So right off the bat, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a visually more impressive showcasing than the first film. Not only did they go to new different worlds in this film, but just the layout of everything just felt exponentially different. It felt more increasingly improving, and I gotta applaud the visual effects for really kind of impressively illustrating these otherworldly settings and different beings and different just walks of life in galaxies that are far beyond our reach, though fictitious. It's very visionary and it's very, very innovative. The one strong thing that I think this film it really is gripping, and I think overtakes in some aspect part one, was the chemistry, character arc, and relationship between the characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Each character had some strong, unique chemistry and relationship with another character. For instance, the two alphas like Rocket the Raccoon and Star-Lord really kind of butting heads at one point, and then just kind of realizing that, you know, it's not about just one person, it's about the team. You see a father and son relationship, though kind of diminished and obscured in Ego and Star-Lord. You really see a quirky but yet effective relationship and chemistry between Mantis and Drax the Destroyer, who is a little bit more of a comedy act this time around than an actual destroyer. You've got what I think was great in the sisterhood chemistry and relationship with Gamora and Nebula, which I think was very, very emotionally gripping, and I think was one of the stronger points in the film. But I think the one relationship that everybody kind of took away in saying like, wow, that was deep, was of course the relationship between Star-Lord and Yondu, especially at the climactic scene where Yondu sacrifices himself for this kid that he basically raised and sees as a son, as well as Star-Lord seeing Yondu as a father-like figure. Very emotional, very tense, very gripping, and very, very captivating, especially for a Marvel film. Now that they're like on a roll with every film that they've done thus far, for them to execute the way that they did emotionally, you know, psychologically, with that type of relationship is kudos to them. And I think that's very strong, very, very detailed, and something that I think one-ups an aspect of Guardians of the Galaxy Part 1. Although that part one-ups Part 1, I think the rest of it just feels kind of the same. It's really hard to one-up a sequel that does so well that you have to forcefully do a second film. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, though it is fun, it is entertaining, it's action-packed, it's hilarious, it's filled with wonders, though it feels that way, it does feel like in some way a rehash of the first one, which in some way isn't bad, but really sequels should be building and making more for their stories, their characters, and the overall layout of the world that they built. While it is fun, it's just stagnant. It's just there. It doesn't feel like it's going up or down. It just feels like you're in the same place. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy Part 1 story and plot was much, much more stronger than this one. Even though the characters and the relationships were much more stronger in this film, I just think the overall story in Part 1 was much, much better than Part 2. And another crazy thing, and the first time I think ever that it's happened for an MCU film, 5 post-credit scenes. 5 post-credit scenes. You've got Sean Gunn's character Kraglin playing with Yondu's arrow and accidentally piercing Drax. You see an adolescent Groot shedding in his room. You see the formation of the original Guardians of the Galaxy with Sly, with Michelle Yeoh, Ving Rhames, and a robot voiced by Miley Cyrus. You've got, once again, I mentioned the revealing of Adam Warlock by the Sovereigns, especially from Aisha. And then that nice little scene with the Watchers and with Stan Lee. Nice way to conclude the film. But yeah, 5 post-credit scenes. That's crazy. I don't think that's ever been done. I think the most they've done is maybe 2 or 3. But to see that, awesome. So awesome. All right, so once again, visually captivating and just eye-opening from the get-go. The strong, very, very gripping and emotional relationships between characters, a feeling of rehashing and similarities of the first film, and really no sense of improving or escalating its overall scale for Part 2. And then finally, 5 post-credit scenes, the first and probably only time Marvel has had that many post-credit scenes in their MCU films. All right, so much to dive in when it comes to the execution. Now let's see how the fans responded to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Act 3, response. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, take 1. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 came out May 5th, 2017. And a lot of expectations, of course, with everything that happened in the first film for this to really kind of excel and improve upon in the second film. And improve upon it did financially. The film raked in over $863 million worldwide, a much, much more significantly higher increase than the first film, obviously. Garnered a lot of awards and nominations, one in particular nomination, Best Visual Effects, at the Academy Awards the following year. And currently holds a certified fresh Rotten Tomatoes rating, I believe around 85-ish%, 84-85%. A general impression, kind of like mine with the entire public, that it just feels like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 all over again, but it's still fun, it's still there. There's just a wish for it to do more, but it just doesn't really do that much more. All right, once again, $863 million in the box office totally. Many of awards and nominations, including Best Visual Effects at the Academy Awards, nomination-wise. And then, of course, the general impression from the fans and the public that the film feeling just like another rehashing of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Now that we've gone through all 3 acts, let's go ahead and hit my verdict for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. To me, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, while it is very, very strong with a bunch of its character arcs and relationships, it just feels like it didn't do too much to say to me that I would put this over Part 1. I do think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 still is a great film. It is truly a magnificent film. But when you try to one-up a film like Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a really hard task to uphold, because that film did so well to a point where the fans demanded a Part 2. So there's all that expectation and all that pressure to go along with it. So of course, there's going to be some setbacks. There's going to be some, disappointments and some, withdrawals about it. But overall, I do think that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a significantly mesmerizing and visually beautiful film that really does improve on some areas, but not enough for me to say that it takes over the first film. The first film had a great story and a great arc to kind of solidify what this group is. The second film really kind of goes into the relationships, which is great, but I think that the story of it just needed to be tweaked a little bit more to get me saying that, oh man, this just kind of skyrocketed, this group and this film series. But once again, while it doesn't overtake the first film, I do think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is still a terrific film. Truly impressive film. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was thoroughly entertained by it, and I will watch it again and again and again. So with that being said, with all the praise, even though it's not as good as the first film, there is praise to be had. I will go ahead and give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 a very, very strong 8.57 out of 10. Now, once again, going through all the MCU films, this is the 16th one we've covered thus far. I'm gonna have a ranking somewhere on this video, left, right, up, down, I don't know. But anyways, you will see my ranking somewhere around here. And if you're following along, you know that we are going to check up on our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in the next Eugene Reviews that affiliates with the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. And I cannot wait for that, because Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel superhero. I have seen all the Spider-Man films. This is going to be the third live-action Spider-Man character portrayal. So it's going to be interesting how the MCU tackles this one. But nonetheless, that's my ranking for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That's my review for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. What did you guys think of the film? Please let me know on the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you thought it was as good as you say, or as I said it was. Do you think that it was terrible? Do you think that it could have done more or less? Let me know. Also too, let me know about your 10 songs for your soundtrack of your life. I want to know all about that too. Being that this film is really kind of centralized by the soundtrack, I figured let's take a look at people's soundtracks of their lives. Leave them in the comments section below too. Like, share, subscribe. Be sure to follow me on Instagram as well, at Eugene Reviews. Be on the lookout for many more videos and more posts to come. Be on the lookout too for the 5 recommendations for the month of January. Thank you all for the love and support thus far. Let's continue all of this strong and high hope and spirit going into 2021. Once again, let's abide by the protocols. Let's try to be safe, not only for ourselves, but for others. The sooner we can do that, the sooner we can go back to what we can consider as a normal life. And with the vaccine out, let's just hope and pray that everything does happen to work out in our favor. So thank you guys once more. Thank you for tuning in today. Once again, as I always say, I hope you guys enjoy watching these as much as I'm enjoying doing these. This is truly a joy to do. So continue all the love and support, continue all the comments, the likes, the shares, all that stuff. Get my word out there. Any and all comments, any and all support and reference is welcome, and I'm much appreciated and thankful and blessed for all of that. So let's keep it up with the new year. Everybody stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands. And that concludes this episode of Eugene Reviews. I will see you again next week for a brand new episode of Eugene Reviews. And that is a wrap. Yeah, these are cool and all, but I really can't hear anything. Like, I can't hear anything in this. I really do think like it's shutting off my ears. Like, it's just closing the holes in my ears. And where's my earbuds? Where the hell did it go?